We love to criticize politicians, celebrities, religions, systems, people. The moment we see something wrong, we stretch our finger and point. But there's a very old saying, when you point one finger, three are pointing back at you. And maybe that's not just moral poetry. Maybe it's geometry of the soul, because every judgment we throw at the world reveals a map of who we are. Have you noticed how selective our eyes are? We spot arrogance in others, but we call our own pride self-confidence. We despise greed, but justify our desires as ambition. We condemn lies, but rename ours as diplomacy. The philosopher Nietzsche once said, when you stare into the abyss stares back. Maybe criticism works the same way. Maybe what disturbs us most in others is what we haven't yet forgiven in ourselves. We say we hate hypocrisy, but hypocrisy might be the most human thing about us. We demand integrity from leaders, but break our own promises. We shout for justice, but remain silent when it threatens our comfort. We claim to fight for truth, but only the truths that agree with us. We build whole identities out of what we oppose, and forget to ask if what we oppose might live quietly inside us. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, and therefore project. He wrote that what we find intolerable in others often mirrors the traits we repress in our own heart. So maybe criticism is not just about others. Maybe it's the soul's way of whispering, look closer. Every spiritual tradition warned us about this mirror. In Christianity, Jesus said, "Why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but not the log in your own?" He didn't say not to judge, he said, judge yourself first. In Judaism, the sages teach, rebuke your fellow, yes, but do it with love, not pride. The goal is not to humiliate, it's to heal. In Islam, the Prophet Muhammad said, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Criticism without empathy is ego wearing a halo. In Buddhism, the mirror is gentler. Others are our teachers, even when they irritate us, especially when they irritate us. Because what we resist is often what we need to learn. Here's the paradox: the more certain we are of being good, the more dangerous we become, because righteousness without humility creates fanatics. And history is full of fanatics who believed they were saving the world by destroying what they feared in themselves. Every ideology, every religion, every revolution starts with criticism, but only survives if that criticism turns inward before it turns outward. So maybe the real act of courage is not to shout what's wrong with the world, but to whisper what's wrong with ourselves. To look at the person we criticize and ask, if I were them, with their story, their fear, their pain, would I be any different? Because empathy isn't agreeing, it's understanding that the line between good and evil runs not between nations, not between religions, but through every human heart. You must be what you criticize most, not as punishment, but as redemption. If you hate ignorance, become educated. If you despise corruption, become incorruptible. If you reject greed, live with generosity. If you condemn hate, speak gently. Because the world doesn't change when you expose hypocrisy. It changes when you stop repeating it. When you point one finger, remember the other three. They're pointing home.